My husband is 44 and I'm 41. Last summer, he started a friendship with a woman who was 33 on Instagram who he recognized from the gym. They started chatting and eventually working out together. One day, he mentioned her casually in passing, saying something along the lines of, "There's a woman at the gym who's been chatting with me. I think you'd like her. You have a lot in common. I'm going to try to set something up with her and her husband." He's an introvert, and I thought, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. I didn't hear anything else about her for several months. He works remotely, and I work in the office several days a week. One day, I had a doctor's appointment or something and mentioned that I'd be working from home the next day. He says at dinner, "Oh, remember that woman I mentioned a while back? She and I are going out to lunch tomorrow, but we have a couple's date planned in 2 weeks." I obviously told him I was not okay with this. He agreed not to go out to lunch with her, but now I have a bunch of questions. He tells me they have all these weird things in common, so much so that it feels like more than a coincidence, and says she looked it up and thinks they're twin flames. Her husband had expressed concerns about their friendship, and putting it in the context of twin flames made him okay with it. So he thought it would help me too, since I also have guy friends, and maybe one of them is a twin flame to me. He said when he looked it up, it didn't mean soulmate, but just someone who is a catalyst for growth and change in life. I asked a lot of questions, like if she had her number. He said no. If they talk outside the gym, he said yes via social media. Why I hadn't heard anything about this woman for the 4 months he was building this twin flame connection. He said he didn't realize I needed to know. Is he attracted to her? No, he doesn't find her attractive. I had a lot of concerns, but he doesn't have a lot of friends, is very introverted, and a little socially awkward, so I was willing to give him some grace here. I told him he needed to set boundaries with her and be open and honest with me. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned a lot of things about this relationship that concern me. There are a lot of lies of omission. She's very much his type physically, and he says neither of them are stupid enough to act on anything. They work out together at different gyms. She's bringing high game, deep conversation card games to the gym to get to know him better, texting him good morning at 4 a.m. They work out together at 4:30 a.m. The messages aren't confirming he's still going to the gym or anything. They're just good morning sensei or something similar. She's giving him random gifts, nothing major, just first aid kits and stuff. Allegedly, he's helping her with nutrition and workouts because she wants to do bodybuilding competitions. At this point, we are fighting every day about this relationship. We go on the double date. On the way, she texts him because we're running late, and that's how I learned he does in fact have her number. I meet her and her husband and learn that she's 33, doesn't work, and they don't have kids. They seem cool, but I still don't like the situation and the lies. We continue fighting every day because I feel her behavior is girlfriendish and he's not shutting it down or setting boundaries. After 6 weeks of fighting and me crying every day, I check his email and find an email he wrote to himself the day before he told me about the lunch date. It's a list of questions and comments. It asks if she dreamed about him and whether the dreams were good or bad. It asks to know about her childhood, her siblings, and her clothing and shoe sizes. It apologizes and explains he's trying to screenshot a message she had sent him on Vanishing Messenger. It says he missed her immensely, but didn't feel like he could say it over the phone, etc. At this point, I decided it was an emotional affair, and I was done. I didn't even argue with him, but he cried and told me he had recognized the relationship was becoming a problem and had planned to end it, but she beat him to it. Her husband told her he was uncomfortable with some of the obsessive behaviors he was seeing and told her he was uncomfortable with their friendship and would never issue an ultimatum, so she ended it. We have young children, so I decided to forgive him since it was over. I made him block her number and social media, and he promised to go completely no contact with her and switch gyms. I compromised when he suggested just going to a different location in the gym's franchise. I was dumb here because I knew this was a location they had previously gone to together, but I figured her spouse would keep her in check. We started marriage counseling the week after Thanksgiving. We were supposed to be working on rebuilding trust and fixing whatever issues made him feel like he needed this woman in his life, no matter how much it hurt me. Fast forward to January, he tells me he went to the old location a couple of times between Christmas and New Year's, and he ran into them. He mentioned that he was working out at the other location when they asked where he'd been. I was pissed that he told me about this interaction 3 weeks after it happened, but pleased he was being honest with me. A week or so later, he tells me she showed up at the other location. I told him they were not to speak or rekindle their friendship. He promised me it would be done and it needed to stay that way. He said okay and he wouldn't talk to her. At some point in January, he started refusing to go to marriage counseling and started putting off all the things we were doing to work on our marriage. He kept saying he was tired because our youngest wasn't sleeping well, and can we do it next week? Around late February or March, he starts sleeping in the bed with our youngest to help us all get more sleep. I didn't agree with the approach, but we were tired. I'm still suspicious and searching his phone, emails, etc. every chance I get. I'm not finding much, aside from a few weird web searches that he deleted from his browser history a few days later. Things like synonyms for a beautiful woman or different ways to say good morning beautiful, etc. He had started leaving me little notes in my car, and I hoped it was related to that, but I also thought it might be a crossword puzzle he was stuck on, since he swore up and down he wasn't talking to her and wouldn't do that to me. He'd learned his lesson. At this point, my bestie convinced me that he had been a socially awkward idiot, and since my snooping hadn't turned up anything, I either needed to forgive him and stop snooping, or leave. So I stopped snooping. Then a week later, my youngest comes down the hall to me. I walk him back to his room and notice my husband snoring. I also notice his phone is lit up with a video or movie playing and isn't on the charger. So I pick up his phone and go to put it on the charger when I see the video is playing on half the screen, and under the video is a conversation he's having with her. What's left of the conversation starts with him saying, "I smell you," to which she responded with either a heart eyes or red heart emoji. He then sent her an Instagram post about how his zodiac sign likes to go down on women and highlighted a comment about wanting to do it for his own pleasure. We've been together 14 years, and I can count on one hand with fingers to spare the number of times that's happened in our relationship. So I pull out my phone and take a video of the conversation before it vanishes. I take the video of the conversation and send it to her husband on Instagram. I text my husband that he's a lying piece of shit and we're done. He responds, "Can you not, or at least wait until the kids are out of the house?" Our kids are young. That ask means I'm stuck miserable and married to him for at least 14 more years. I tell him he's an asshole. We talk, you and I, the next day, and I learned that after seeing him in the gym in December, she reached out to him on MyFitnessPal, MPF, after discovering she was blocked everywhere else. She started going to the gym he was at 2 days a week, every week. They would meet in the parking lot, hug each other, talk about their workouts and stuff, and then go into the gym to work out and not talk. My husband felt that this made his comments about not talking to her in the gym not a lie. After she reached out on MPF, he initially ignored her message. She followed up claiming she was depressed and losing the will to live or something without him. He then told her to talk to her husband and see if he could help her. She persisted, and eventually he agreed that he missed her and it was unfair that their spouses were dictating their friendships. So they resumed chatting on Instagram's vanishing messenger. He would unblock her to chat with her, then reblock her. So when I checked his phone, she appeared blocked and as if they weren't talking. Her husband told me this. Let's say I found the message on Monday night. On Tuesday, he hid from me, but went to lunch with her at her favorite restaurant because he didn't want to be found. On Wednesday, we talked. Read, I yelled and lost my shit at him. On Thursday and Friday, I had a business trip. Apparently, they worked out together on Thursday. She cried on his shoulder, and on Friday, they went to lunch at his favorite restaurant. On Saturday, they met at Starbucks, where she told him that her husband had requested they take a break for 2 weeks to work on their marriage. At this point, I had a meeting scheduled with a divorce attorney because he had shown me where his priorities were. He came back from that Starbucks meeting pissed. My husband had told me he was going to meet her, and in frustration, I messaged her husband, "Damn, they just can't stay away from each other, can they?" Her husband interpreted that as my husband continuing to lie to me and called her fussing. She put him on speaker, and my husband was mad that her husband had called him a liar. He hadn't been mad that I called him a pathological liar and every other term there is for a lying, cheating bastard, but he was livid that they thought he was a liar. He wanted me to call her husband and explain that I did know in advance and that this time he had been honest with me. I obviously refused because I didn't give a fuck what they thought of him or us. That made him madder. I have my thoughts on why he was so mad. Probably the same thing you're thinking. I learned from her husband that she's polyamorous, which my husband knew all along, and her husband is allegedly coming to terms with being polyamorous. My husband had actually gone out to lunch with this woman before the outing I vetoed. They've had conversations, which she initiated, about favorite sexual positions, likes and dislikes in bed, etc. She allegedly tried to convince my husband to go to NYC with her to a bodybuilding show, which he said no to, primarily in my opinion because it wasn't something he could easily lie about. I retained a divorce attorney, and we argue. He mostly insists I'm being controlling and that I need to be more understanding and accept this friendship. After a week, he finally starts apologizing, saying he wants to fix us and asks if I can find us a new marriage counselor. No, I cannot. He proceeds to keep telling me I'm being hasty and that I need to give us time to fix this because change won't happen overnight. Two of my friends convince me that our problems are fixable, we just both have to want to work on it. I'm still living in the house, but we sleep in different rooms because my name isn't on the mortgage. A few months prior, he stopped paying my credit card bill without telling me and tanked my credit score from 800 to 580. Since I can't comfortably move out right now, and the state requires a few months of separation before they will even process a divorce, I told him he has until the ink dries to convince me he's not the callous asshole he's been showing himself to be. I'm waiting until the end of the separation period to file. We've been separated since the end of April when I saw the texts.